Mindfulness. Reduce anxiety by being more present in the moment. Written by Erica Showdown. Narrated by Sarah Margrave. Chapter 1. Easy ways to be more present in the moment. Waking mindfully. What is your routine when you wake up? Do you hit the alarm clock and jump out of bed? Do you press the snooze button for 30 minutes? Waking is a fundamental part of the day. You wouldn't have much of a day without it. Honor this time with a refreshing mindfulness practice that feels right for you. For instance, when you're waking up, you might take several minutes to see your breath. Take some slow and deep breaths and see your senses beginning to engage. Your sense of smell, your eyes adapting to the morning light, the feeling of your body against the sheets, and the morning sounds of the world waking with you. And once you have experienced those experiences, you might add some light stretches or wrist rolls and see the energy starting to flow. Perhaps you're not an early morning person, so this is a great way to alleviate into it. Showering mindfully. Is the next step to get into the shower? Is this normally when you really begin to get up, or do you stand there in zombie mode until the first cup of coffee? The shower is just one of my favorite times to practice mindfulness, simply because you can truly fixate on your body while the water drowns out the sound of the world outside. As a matter of fact, the water alone can be your call to mindfulness. Notice the feelings that the water offers. Notice the temperature level become different from when the water first hits your skin to when it rolls off your feet and cools on the floor of the shower. Is your shower a mild spray or a strong jet? Notice its pressure on your skin and pay more attention to single drops. Can you follow a drop of water down the length of your body without taking a look at it? Then, what does your shower smell like? Eating with mindfulness. Are you ready for breakfast? Can you remember what you had for breakfast yesterday morning? Better yet, do you remember chewing or remember what it tasted like? Sometimes we are on autopilot when we eat, especially in the early morning. Next time, no gobbling down that bagel without truly tasting it. At your first meal, remember the senses that you jump-started in the shower. Experience them again in different ways. An egg yolk isn't just an egg yolk. It has color variations, it has an almost invisible skin, and it behaves in different ways when you touch it, depending upon how it was cooked. As for chewing and tasting, that can be a whole practice in itself. Mindfulness instructor Jon Kabat-Zinn is well known for introducing clients to the raisin awareness meditation. Whether it's a raisin or a piece of toast, we can gradually experience all elements of appreciating our food. There are many tastes and textures that go unnoticed when we eat mindlessly. What does the toast feel like between your fingers? Smell it. Notice the tiny holes and grains in the surface area. Take a tiny bite and see how it brushes against your tongue, crunches under your teeth, disintegrates and dissolves, and slides down your throat. It may take you 30 minutes just to eat that piece of toast. The point is to slow down and stay present with your food, to not take the food or the experience of eating food for granted. Driving mindfully. When we drive mindfully, creepy things can happen, the least of which might be slamming on the brakes in the nick of time. It is just so easy to get lost in the thoughts of our day's obligation or concern ourselves with the lives of the drivers around us, What a jerk! When we're completely present in our vehicle, eyes on the road and minds on the drive, we are much more secure and calmer drivers. As long as that other guy is driving safely, we don't need to concern ourselves with his service. We can avoid decal and signboards because we know they do not matter. We aren't speeding. We aren't digging our fingernails into the steering wheel, and our blood is not boiling with road rage. We are letting all of that go by breathing deeply, staying present, and accepting that the outside world is beyond our control. Did he just cut you off? Well, that moment has already passed. You can't go back and prevent it, and you will not be teaching her a lesson by getting mad. Granted, this takes some practice. However, if you're a disappointed driver, you will have plenty of chances to do so. Now you're ready for the red light meditation challenge. Let's say you bring up to a traffic signal that lasts 1 minute. That is 1 minute you can fill with deep breathing and awareness. Next time, consider it your 60-second timer. Red light begins the timer, and green light stops it. Kind of like a power nap. This is your power meditation method. Just be present with your surroundings without judging them. And if you do get sidetracked, which you will, carefully bring yourself back to the moment. Keep practicing. Release that frustration. You don't have any control over other motorists, but you have full control of how you'll react or not react to them. Your thoughts do not own you, and you are not your thoughts. This exercise was adjusted by my former professor, Tom Holmes, at Western Michigan University, from a story once told by Zen Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh. Always one to add an amusing spin on a story, Dr. Holmes concluded the exercise by telling students, if you close your eyes for too long while stopped at the red light and lose track of time, do not worry. The individual behind you will definitely let you know when the light has turned green. Just breathe. Desk meditation. Are you a person who takes power naps on your work break? Does that allow you any time to quickly eat lunch? Rather than a nap, how about practicing a brief but restful mindfulness meditation? A paradox of mindfulness meditation is that it can be both relaxing and stimulating at the same time. When it is break time, take 5 minutes to quiet your mind. This is now your time and you deserve to enjoy it. If you need to set some limits with coworkers and kindly tell them to scram, then I prompt you to practice that as well. Close the office door, sit conveniently upright with your feet planted on the floor, and rest your hands on your lap. Take some deep and soothing breaths. Focus on the experience of the air coming into your nostrils and flowing deeply into your lungs. Do not worry about breathing appropriately. Just breathe easily. Upon exhaling, breathe out through your mouth, seeing the air breeze by your lips. Notice any stress in your body, maybe rolling your shoulders and breathing into that stress. Your feet are grounded on the floor. Your lungs are full of fresh air and your mind is clear of stress for this moment. End of the day. Now you can do the same practices in reverse after work. You can drive back home mindfully, eat supper mindfully, and perhaps you even shower or wash up before becoming into night clothes. So, how will you honor the day and set your objective for a peaceful sleep, free from thoughts about what you did not get completed today or what you have on your plate for tomorrow? Have you ever heard about loving kindness? It is a whole idea unto itself, and it incorporates a terrific meditation practice. I'd suggest books by Pema Chödrön or Sharon Salzberg to find out more. Here's a basic loving-kindness style meditation. While lying in bed, Before dozing off, just be mindful of the people in your life. Start with yourself and just give yourself a loving acknowledgement and appreciation. A basic message wanting yourself health and happiness. Next, do the exact same for someone who is closest to you. This may be the partner lying next to you or a close relative. Think a kind thought of appreciation for what they mean to you and wish them peace and joy. Repeat this action again, this time for someone who you experience throughout your day but perhaps aren't as near to. Think of a colleague or associate. Last but not least, try sending out a genuine want wellness and joy to someone who you aren't near. Maybe this is someone with whom you had a dispute or someone who annoyed you today. Desire them well and unburden yourself of negative energy before sleeping. Then, breathe easily, slowly, and deeply before dozing off. This loving-kindness exercise includes more intentional thought and structure than the other mindfulness practices, but it is still one in which you are present in the moment, familiar with your reactions, and suspending your judgments. It is a clearing practice that produces a peace, openness, and stillness as you get ready to sleep. Chapter 2: Mindfulness through Music. We can look at mindfulness and music from two directions: the practice of mindfulness meditation to enhance musicianship, and the practice of music to enhance mindfulness. Musical artists can cultivate insight and influence change in both practice and efficiency through the study of mindfulness meditation. Meditators can use music to improve their experience of mindfulness. In this way, the two aspects are harmonious and are complementary practices. Mindfulness for musicians. Mindfulness can improve our experience of being music artists. This is the application of mindful meditation towards the peak practice and performance of music. The most common issues that music artists encounter include efficiency anxiety, imposter complex, and what Abraham Maslow referred to as the Jonah complex, the fear of success. Through instruction, daily meditative practice, and weekly discussions with a teacher, one can acquire insight and initiate positive change in their practice and performance of music. Music to boost mindfulness. The second direction that we can take in mindfulness in music is the improvement of our mindful experience of daily life through music. We usually utilize exercises in listening and free improvisation to find spontaneous, active, and intentional styles of living and making music. Through everyday practice in listening and playing, one can cultivate a more spontaneous, purposeful, and meaningful way of being in the world. It has been my experience that a reliable way toward comprehending something is to do it. Therefore, I'll offer two exercises in mindfulness and music, one for musical artists who wish to check out and boost their craft, and the other for meditators who wish to integrate music into their meditative practice. Mindfulness for musical practice. The initial step in becoming more conscious of a person's craft is to silence the mind. In Buddhist theories, the illustration is often used of enabling muddy water to settle to the bottom so that one can see obviously through the water. This analogy helps us to comprehend how action typically interferes with acquiring insight. Just as the dirt in the water cannot be cleared by doing something, the act of attempting to clear the dirt keeps it from settling and clearing. One can't begin to see their circumstance plainly if one is trying. This counterintuitive way to clearness is called non-action. Non-action is a resolve to do nothing, to enable the dust to settle. whereas our impulse is to reactively do something to change the situation that we are experiencing, be that anxiety, feelings of insecurity, or fear. The approach of non-action is to just sit, allowing the dust to settle. The instructor, Alan Watts, would typically say, "Don't just do something, sit there." The initial step to a mindful awareness of our circumstance is to enable the clarity to occur through non-action. For the next week, take 10 minutes each day to sit quietly and accept the difficulty that you are facing. This is the beginning of the process, to embrace the very thing with which we are having a hard time. Embracing the sign indicates accepting that we have something to learn a lot from our suffering, and that anxiety, doubt, or fear is a message from our bodies that we can listen to and learn much from. We start this process by accepting and doing nothing. Musical practice for mindfulness. The next exercise aims to use music as means toward a more extensive and more mindful sense of self. This exercise does not require you to have any musical capabilities or any level of efficiency on an instrument. The guiding concept that is typically heard in meaningful arts treatment is low strategy, high expression. The principle will serve the beginner well in using music as a way toward mindfulness. Choose an instrument. Pawn shops and categorized listings offer instruments that are typically lightly used at really sensible costs. You might choose an instrument that you have always delighted in listening to, like the flute or cello. Potentially, you have always had an interest about the piano or the slide trombone. Maybe drums or singing has always felt like part of your personality. You could even make an instrument from found items. Whatever the reason could be, choose an instrument that you feel a personal connection with or an interest in. Begin by making noises on the instrument. As you make sounds for the first time, focus your attention on the character of the tone itself. We call this the tone or color of the tone. Is the tone smooth or extreme? Is it dark or bright sounding? Explore playing softly and loudly. Be aware of the contrast that you are making with pitch, high, medium, and low notes. Focus on listening for the moment at which the note begins and ends, the limits between sound and silence. The exercise of just playing will bring you into contact with the noises that you are making now. Resist the tendency to judge yourself or to picture what others may think. Do not judge, but simply observe. Know the fundamental feeling tone that you encounter while playing. Do you feel positive, neutral, or negative? Spend time every day playing tones as part of your mindfulness practice. Conscious meditation can be effective in helping us to become more authentic musical artists. Music making can help us to become more conscious in our experience of ourselves. Mindfulness and music are mutual and unified activities that can enhance someone's experience. Chapter 3. Identifying Mindfulness Narcissistic. Mindfulness is normally conceived as a particular quality of awareness, and mindfulness meditation as a technique to train the mind to reach this state of awareness. It's a state in which we focus using all of our senses while preserving a non-reactive and steady presence, or, according to more current meanings, a state defined by focusing in a curious, open, unbiased, non-judgmental, thoughtful, or accepting way. The next question that we have to answer is whether mindfulness is more than another health-related or personal improvement item. Mindfulness as a product. To understand what it means to view mindfulness as a product, let us look at an example from Dr. Plant's post. His example refers to companies that suggest meditation in response to employees complaining about job-related problems. The message behind these suggestions, he says, is, if you're not happy, practice meditation, but do not complain. Undoubtedly, such messages appear to view grievances not as lawful complaints, but as signs of mismanaged tension. In such a context, mindfulness meditation is an item to be used for a certain purpose, reducing work-related tension or stress from other sources that may impact work behavior. However, what if using mindfulness, the product, resulted in something the owner of the company didn't expect? What if it increased consciousness of the unfair treatment at work, and therefore resulted in much more complaints? Would the owner be validated in concluding that mindfulness is pointless? Obviously, the uses of mindfulness, the product, are not limited to reducing work grievances. There are people who have prompted mindfulness as a way to become, say, more relaxed, positive, happy, and healthy, to conquer anxiety, stress and depressive thoughts, and many other mental health issues, to study more effectively, to make more money, to have a better sex life, and so on. Keep in mind that seldom do well-known books on mindfulness promote the usage of mindfulness, the product, for purposes related straight to benefiting others. And this brings me to the question of narcissism and mindfulness. Is mindfulness narcissistic then? Many writers, both professional and ordinary people, have suggested that mindfulness is narcissistic. In his discussion of the link between mindfulness and narcissism, Dr. Plant recalls the time that he was asked to read a text written by a researcher and mindfulness supporter, and his surprise that the manuscript only concentrated on self-help and not on helping others. To give further proof for the narcissistic nature of mindfulness, he notes that many mindfulness gurus ask for massive costs and perks, have glamorous pictures of themselves to promote their work, and only offer training at classy and costly hotels, retreat centers, and day spas. So, with this evidence, are we to conclude that mindfulness encourages us to end up being more self-preoccupied, self-indulgent, and self-obsessed? Perhaps. The common way mindfulness has been packaged and promoted in Western countries makes it easy for us to use mindfulness, yet another personal improvement product and another form of self-preoccupation. As we will see below, the self-help mindfulness we have been encouraged to practice is, to a great extent, decontextualized from its tradition, values, faith, culture, and history. The origins of mindfulness. The Buddhist writings, the principle of mindfulness can be found in some spots, but especially in the Eightfold Course to Freedom from Suffering. These 8 courses are at times grouped into the following 3 classifications, with right mindfulness placed in the meditation classification. Wisdom, right view, right intention. Ethical conduct, right speech, right conduct, right income. Meditation, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. These 8 principles interact and can be considered different dimensions of the same course. What does it mean to view mindfulness only as a non-judgmental consciousness of the here and now? Doing so is a secularization of one interpretation of the traditional principle of sati, i.e., mindfulness. This contemporary definition, limitations, or asseverates bare consciousness from related practices generally connected to mindfulness as the guarantor of correct practice of all the other course elements. Simply put, the mindfulness we typically practice is no longer related to the Buddhist worldview and its principles. With knowledge and morals, with purposeful action based upon right judgment. The popular form of mindfulness we do practice is one that doesn't threaten our religious values and traditions, or absence of them, nor challenges our culture's focus on personal freedom, individualism, competition, consumption, narcissism, etc. Naturally, Authors who emphasize Buddhist ethics or encourage mindfulness practice for the purpose of benefiting others are at times implicated of having a hidden agenda and pushing ethical or spiritual values. In other words, if we conceptualize mindfulness meditation as a kind of scientific treatment or non-religious self-help practice, that is, for better health, more joy, greater success, then we should not be shocked when people use it generally for that purpose. Concluding thoughts. If you really believe mindfulness is an ineffective treatment and an overhyped item, failing to provide on promises of health, joy, and success, or if you believe it promotes narcissism, then spend a little time learning more about mindfulness in the setting of Buddhism. Research, study the Eightfold Path, the 5 Precepts, the 4 Noble Realities, the 3 Toxins, etc. You will notice that mindfulness does not exist in a vacuum. The Buddhist mindfulness practice is a part of a bigger whole. Mindfulness meditation is more than the same as a tablet or a mind technique to help us attain established objectives shaped by our worldviews or desires. It is a piece of a worldview that has much to say relating to the purpose and meaning of life, mortality, truth, etc. So, get a sense for that broad view before denouncing mindfulness as worthless and even championing it as a panacea. Chapter 4. The definition of mindfulness. Mindfulness is a state of active, open attention to the present. That state is described as observing an individual's thoughts and emotions without judging them as good or bad. Understanding mindfulness. To live mindfully is to live in the moment and reawaken oneself to the present, instead of dwelling on the past or preparing for the future. To be conscious is to observe and identify thoughts, emotions, experiences in the body in an objective manner. Mindfulness can, because of that, be a tool to keep away from self-criticism and judgment, while identifying and managing hard feelings. Mindfulness is rooted in Buddhist and Hindu teachings. Buddhism includes a journey towards enlightenment and the principle of sati, which encompasses attention, awareness, and being present, is considered the first step to knowledge. The term was approximately translated from the age-old language Pali into the term mindfulness. The introduction of mindfulness in Western culture can be credited to John Kabat-Zinn. Kabat-Zinn studied mindfulness under some Buddhist teachers like Philip Kapleau and Thich Nhat Hanh. As a teacher at the University of Massachusetts Medical School in the late 1970s, Kabat-Zinn developed a program called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, MBSR, to deal with persistent pain. He discovered that patients would usually try to stay away from the pain, but that avoidance would result in deeper distress. Practicing mindfulness was a more effective method. As mindfulness moved into mainstream science and medicine, it became a critical therapeutic technique. It was incorporated into mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, dialectical behavior treatment, and acceptance and dedication therapy, among others. What is mindfulness? Mindfulness incorporates 2 key active ingredients: awareness and acceptance. Awareness is the knowledge and capability to focus attention on an individual's inner procedures and experiences, such as the experience of the present moment. Acceptance is the ability to observe and accept, instead of judge or stay away from, those streams of thought. What is the purpose of mindfulness? The goal of mindfulness is to cultivate perspective on someone's awareness and identity that can bring greater peace psychologically and relationally. Mindfulness might also be used in mindfulness-based treatments to address stress, anxiety, or pain, and simply to become more relaxed. What is the history of mindfulness? Mindfulness has its origins in Buddhist and Hindu teachings, from which the principle sati was approximately translated to mindfulness. The practice was popularized in the West through the work of Jon Kabat-Zinn. Zinn created mindfulness-based tension decrease to treat pain, anxiety, and tension, and he eventually brought mindfulness into traditional medical practice. What's the difference between mindfulness and flow? Flow is a state in which one is completely absorbed in an activity and loses self-awareness. Circulation and mindfulness both involve deep concentration, but only flow involves goal-directed conduct. While mindfulness channels concentration totally towards the present moment, flow channels concentration towards abilities and goal accomplishment, which may include thoughts of the past and future and judgment of these thoughts. What's the difference between mindfulness and meditation? Mindfulness is one form of meditation. Meditation utilizes numerous practices to quiet the mind or attain a greater level of consciousness, one of which is mindfulness. Mindfulness can be refined within or outside of formal meditation and woven into any activity, like walking or talking. Practicing mindfulness. An individual's experience of time tends to be subjective and greatly influenced by their emotional state. Fears and insecurities about the past and the future can make it hard to totally appreciate the present. The key is learning how to focus. Mindfulness can happen through meditation sessions or little moments throughout the day. To cultivate a state of mindfulness, you can start by sitting down and taking deep breaths. Focus on each breath and the sensations of the moment, such as sounds, fragrances, the temperature, and the feeling of air breathing in and out of the body. Shift your attention then to the thoughts and feelings that you're experiencing. Allow each thought to exist without judging it or ascribing negativity to it. Sit with those thoughts. The experience could evoke a strong emotional response. Checking out that reaction can be a chance to deal with or resolve underlying obstacles. How do I practice mindfulness? To cultivate awareness, observe your thoughts and emotions and check out why those specific ideas may be appearing. To cultivate approval, avoid judging or pushing away unpleasant thoughts. Feelings are natural and everyone has them. Acknowledging them can help you comprehend yourself better and progress. How can I be more conscious? Mindfulness can definitely help take you into the present moment throughout the day. As you wake up, you can fixate on your breathing and the way your body slowly becomes more stimulated. You can integrate a quick meditation into your workday, maybe on your lunch break, and focus and appreciate the experience of eating during meals. Why is mindfulness so popular? Mindfulness has been embraced by corporate leaders, sports teams, the army, and numerous individuals everywhere. The practice might owe its appeal to today's fast-paced, technology-driven world, swarming with monetary and time pressures. Mindfulness could represent an unmet need for moments of silence, contemplation, and calm. The advantages of mindfulness. Mindfulness is frequently used in meditation and certain sorts of treatment. Its benefits include lowering tension levels, lowering hazardous ruminating, and safeguarding against depression and anxiety. Research even suggests that mindfulness can help people better cope with rejection and social isolation. Does mindfulness actually work? Review studies suggest that mindfulness-based interventions can help in reducing anxiety, depression, and pain. To a lesser level, they can minimize stress and improve quality of life. However, disparities in the way mindfulness is specified and gauged make it challenging to figure out whether mindfulness really provides other benefits. How does mindfulness help eliminate anxiety? Mindfulness incorporates awareness and acceptance, which can help people comprehend and manage awkward feelings, enabling them to gain control and relief. To cultivate these skills, focus on breathing to lengthen and deepen your breaths. Foster a consciousness of the five senses. Notice your thoughts and feelings and practice curiosity and self-compassion. Can mindfulness help me break bad habits? Mindfulness can contribute in helping people break practices such as smoking or binge eating. When a routine has developed, the trigger, hunger, prompts a conduct, eating, that leads to a reward, fulfillment. Becoming mindful of the conduct and what is stemmed from it can help change the benefit and change it with a healthier behavior. Can mindfulness help my relationship? Higher levels of mindfulness forecast happier and more rewarding relationships, research suggests. It is difficult to disentangle whether mindfulness directly caused those enhancements, but mindfulness does benefit key relationship abilities, such as existing and attentive, managing feelings, being self-aware, and cultivating empathy and empathy. Chapter 5. How mindfulness improves your brain and relationships. Mindfulness is the process of focusing, in an open, non-judgmental way, to your experience in the present moment. Dr. Daniel J. Siegel specifies mindfulness as the process of developing an awareness of the present moment that's filled with interest, openness, approval, and love to our ongoing experience. Mindfulness training workouts include deliberately focusing on the breath as an anchor for your attention, preserving an open awareness of whatever thoughts and feelings spontaneously appear in your mind and body, and deliberately directing kind and compassionate feelings towards self and others. In this chapter, you will read about how mindfulness practice changes your brain to give you more cognitive versatility, better control over attention, emotions and impulses, relief for tension and anxiety, and greater brain integration and connectivity. How does mindfulness work in your brain? Dr. Siegel defines the working of mindfulness in the brain as follows. Seeing the differences between sense and story, between primary experience-dependent bottom-up input and the secondary top-down chatter of previous learning becomes a basic tool of the mindfulness method. Once this seeing of the contents of the mind, is readily available through intentional practice, the capacity to alter regular patterns is created, and the possibility becomes available for relief for self-preoccupied rumination, self-defeating thought patterns, negative autobiographical narratives, and maladaptive patterns of psychological reactivity. Simply put, when we can make a distinction between our direct, in-the-moment experience and our judgments and analysis of those psychological and bodily states, we can break the cycles of automatic reactivity and undo the grip of negative stories and rigid beliefs about ourselves based on past negative experiences. When we can identify our negative self-beliefs as only a story, then we have the potential to disengage from the inner critic and end up being more self-compassionate. If, in the midst of a fight with your partner, you can label your bad thoughts and hurt feelings as just my rejection script, or if you can notice your blood pressure rising and your face getting redder, then you have a higher degree of choice about how to behave. Instead of feeling obligated to shout and attack or strongly protect your position, you can instead choose to take a break, connect with your love for your partner, or try to comprehend his or her perspective. Consequently, you should have reduced stress and more loving, connected relationships. What are the advantages of mindfulness? Research in the past decade has found several advantages of mindfulness, including, but not limited to, improvements in immune function, reductions in stress and anxiety, increases in empathy, and improvement in relationship fulfillment. A current statistical evaluation which pooled information from 16 studies showed that mindfulness has moderate impacts on at least 8 different brain areas involved in brain incorporation and connectivity, sense of self, impulse control, and control of attention and emotion. What areas of the brain does mindfulness influence? One of the prime parts affected by mindfulness is the anterior cingulate cortex, ACC, a part of the brain connected with self-perception, regulation of attention, emotions and impulses, and cognitive flexibility, or the ability to change problem-solving strategies when you're not getting the results you want. The ACC helps you to adapt and learn much from experience, rather than getting stuck in fixed views of yourself and running on autopilot. When you are faced with uncertainty and a quickly changing world, the ACC is particularly essential. A second brain region impacted by mindfulness is the hippocampus. In a 2011 research study, individuals in a mindfulness program had increased gray matter in this area, compared to control subjects. Gray matter contains most of the brain's neuronal cell bodies. The hippocampus is the midpoint for making more memories. Without a working hippocampus, you can't live in the present and will be stuck in the old memories of the past. Truth be told, the hippocampus is tinier in clients with trauma and extreme depression. The hippocampus helps you to be more resilient and change with new experiences. It has many receptors for cortisol, the tension hormone, and can be harmed by too much stress. A third area that mindfulness influences is the corpus callosum, which links the right and left hemispheres of the brain. The right hemisphere is related to more holistic, psychological, nonverbal processing, though the left hemisphere is direct, actual, and rational, and involved in verbal processing. Some researchers really believe that the left hemisphere is a center for positive feeling, while the right is related to negative emotion. The corpus callosum is thicker in knowledgeable meditators, suggesting greater connectivity and capability to put your psychological and physical experiences into words and connect emotions to events in a sensible way. If you're not convinced by now that learning and practicing mindfulness is a really good idea, I'm going to leave you with the words of Harvard neuroscience scientist writing for the Harvard Company Review. Mindfulness must no longer be considered a nice-to-have for executives. It is an essential, a way to keep our brains healthy, to support self-regulation and reliable decision-making abilities, and to secure ourselves from hazardous tension. Chapter 6: Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy. Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy, MBCT, is a modified form of cognitive therapy that includes mindfulness practices such as meditation and breathing exercises. Using these tools, MBCT therapists teach clients how to break away from negative idea patterns that can cause a downward spiral into a depressed state, so they will be able to fight off depression before it takes hold. When it is used. MBCT was developed for those with recurring episodes of depression or misery to stop regression. It has been proven effective in patients with significant depressive disorder who have experienced at the very least 3 episodes of depression. Mindfulness-based regression avoidance could also be helpful for treating generalized anxiety conditions and addictions. MBCT has also been revealed to enhance signs of depression in some people with physical health conditions, like vascular disease and terrible brain injury. What to expect? MBCT is group therapy with once-a-week 2-hour sessions led by your therapist as part of an 8-week program. You'll learn meditation strategies and also basic concepts of cognition, such as the relationship between the way you think and how you feel. You'll also have the chance to find out more about your depressive condition. On the days when there's no session, there is homework, which includes practicing breathing workouts and mindful meditation. How it functions. In some cases, typical unhappiness is an effective trigger for somebody who has recovered from a depressive state to relapse into another bout of depression. Rather than try to avoid or remove sadness or other negative emotions, one learns to change their relationship with these emotions by practicing meditation and other mindfulness exercises. These activities rebalance neural networks, enabling the client to move from automated negative responses towards an understanding that there are other ways to react to circumstances. By developing a routine meditation practice, clients can use the technique when they start to feel overwhelmed by negative emotions. When sadness occurs and begins to bring up the usual negative association that set off relapse of depression, the client is geared up with tools that will help them replace negative thought patterns with positive. What to look for in an MBCT therapist. An MBCT therapist is a psychological health specialist who has added training in mindfulness-based practices and techniques and is competent at teaching these strategies to others. Organizations like the UC San Diego Center for Mindfulness trains and accredits MBCT teachers around the United States. There is no official recommendation service for MBCT programs or therapists. Other than checking qualifications, it is necessary to find an MBCT therapist with whom you feel comfortable working. Chapter 7. How does mindfulness help with depression and anxiety? Antidepressants: the good and the bad. The history of antidepressant response ended up being clearer with the STAR-D study starting in 2006. It revealed that up to 50% of individuals receiving antidepressants accomplished remission after 24 weeks of 2 medication trials. Unfortunately, that left 50% who had not. We wanted to improve on that number and help the ones who were still suffering, regardless of 2 or more medication trials. To react to this problem, I led the Practicing Alternatives to Recover Anxiety research study sponsored by the National Institutes of Health. We found that mindfulness had effective impacts in lowering depression and anxiety. It also helped increase self-compassion while minimizing ruminations. Ruminations are endless loops of thoughts that increase depression while not helping to find options to bothersome circumstances. Mindfulness as a beneficial method for mood regulation. Mindfulness at its core is understanding your experiences as you are experiencing them and suspending judgment about them. Those include feelings, thoughts, and emotions. Mindfulness meditation can be thought of as shining the spotlight of attention on a certain focus that you pick in the present moment. This spotlight can be as broad or narrow as you like. Typically, mindfulness can be thought about in 2 ways. In one, the discrete form, you practice focusing your attention for a specific amount of time, say a meditation where you fixate on your breath for 10 minutes. When your mind wanders, you see the wandering and bring the attention back to the breath. In the other form of mindfulness, it can be called dispositional mindfulness, where you bring mindful consciousness to your daily life. For example, you notice the feelings in your feet as you walk down the street. In both forms of mindfulness, you are focusing your consciousness, but the settings vary. Mindfulness systems and depression. Depression and anxiety can be considered disorders of time. In depression, you are focused on the past. You feel as though a loss has already occurred, like a lost loved one, relationship, job, or valued thing. With anxiety, you feel as though a loss is going to occur in the future. A catastrophe is looming. Mindfulness has effective antidepressant and anti-anxiety effects because its focus is on the present moment. When you concentrate on the present moment, you release the past and the future. If you are focused on your body experiences, then you are not concentrating on the past or future. Mindfulness meditation doesn't need a big-time dedication. If you can breathe, you can be conscious. Mindfulness is a skill like others. When you start learning how to build your muscles, you start with small weights and gradually increase them. The same method applies to mindfulness. You start with brief meditations and then learn to vary the types of meditations that you do. Most people find that brief meditations, say 5 to 10 minutes a day, are easiest to do, while other individuals prefer a 30-minute meditation. There is no proof that a particular amount of time is needed to learn mindfulness abilities. Rather, it is essential for you to develop your own routine, ideally daily, the practice of what works for you. This has been Mindfulness. Reduce anxiety by being more present in the moment. Written by Erica Showdown. Narrated by Sarah Margrave.